So the joke was, I had all my life to be positive, and now I'm positive, and they made me self-isolate. With a joke. I hope I got your attention now. So we're gonna check some words of 1 Corinthians 3 and 4, which is a lot, and I'm a bit resentful to Ruth because it's unfair to cover it in 15 minutes. I'm not gonna cover it, so disclaimer here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna whiz through chapter 3, and the best way to understand it was by reading a book, by reading a couple of books that were going around to prepare these talks about 1 Corinthians, and how do we understand what's going on in the church in Corinthians? First of all, the most experienced apostle of all times about self-isolation is Paul, because he's not even present. So he is teaching remotely, one word that we're super familiar with. So he's been there, done that, and the guy writing a letter and try to disciple a church remotely. That is crazy. And chapter 3, the first slide, I think. Sorry, there was something telling me something else on my screen. So how do we understand chapter 3? There are 4 illustrations. The whole chapter is covered in 4 illustrations: baby milk, plant, building, and temple. Both are linked between them. Well, I will try to explain. There was something going on. There was a lot of immaturity. And the next slide will explain the baby milk illustration. Paul says, oh, there's jealousy and fights, you behaving like little toddlers, you know, there was a lot of that going on. And there he is, this guy, not in present, but writing a letter and trying to sort that out and trying to encourage, to tell them off really, you know, like toddlers. Now, they don't think themselves as toddlers. They're super mature and they know it all. And they're very proud people. And here's Paul bursting a bubble. Oh, no. You're so immature that I had to feed you with baby milk. You're not even able to chew and to swallow proper food. That's how immature you are. And there's a lot of fighting in this community, and there's a lot of jealousy. And you'll find out in chapter 5 what else is going on. Thank goodness I'm not doing that, because you'll find out next week. So Paul has to come down to the level and says, look where you are, and you think of yourself like, oh my goodness, I'm super amazing, this and that. Let's go to the next slide and the next illustration. He talks about a plant. So we go from baby milk to a plant. And one of the big issues here is that they Paul basically put the foundation of the church, preach the gospel to them. And that's the first time they heard about Jesus. And then Apollos contributed to that. And there were many others, you'll find out, that contributed to that church, to the growth of that church. So instead of, the title of this talk is, who do we follow? Instead of following Christ, every contributor to the church was trying to encourage them to follow Christ. Instead of that, they started saying, you know what? I'm Team Paul. And the other one, I'm Team Apollos, because Apollos is the most charismatic one. Well, I'm Team whatever. But that wasn't a preference. They started fighting about it. And who do we follow? Who do we follow? Because here, I'm going to read most of the extracts, the verses here are from the Message, unless I say otherwise, which I will let you know. Here, Paul says, I planted the seeds. Apollo watered the plants, but God made you grow. Who do you follow? It's not the one who plants or the one who waters who is the center of this process, but God who makes things grow. Planting and watering are menial servant jobs at minimum wages. What makes them worth doing is the God we are serving. You happen to be God's field in which we are working. That's in the message. It explains very nicely, doesn't it? Let's go to the next one. And in this one, I want to dwell a little bit longer with a story that everyone knows, I can remember from childhood. The next is a building, the next illustration. And he says, you know what? You are God's house. Using the gift God gave me as a good architect, I designed blueprints. Apollo is putting up the walls. But then there are other people. Let each carpenter who comes on the job take care to build on the foundation. Remember, there's only one foundation. Again, who do we follow? That's the question. If you remember one thing about today, is who do we follow? Remember, there's only one foundation, the one already laid, Jesus Christ. Take particular care in picking out your building materials. Eventually, there's going to be an inspection. If you use cheap or inferior materials, you'll be found out. The inspection will be thorough and rigorous. You won't get by a thing. If your work passes inspection, fine. If it doesn't, your part of the building will be torn out and started over. But you won't be torn out. You'll survive, but just barely. So you know the story, right? I don't know why I'm not using this, so I'm going to put it down. You know the story of the little piggies. I'm not going to go through it, but very different styles of building. One builds with straw, one builds with logs, and another one with bricks. But the point of that story, well, I don't know the point is the building in that story. But here, what the apostle is saying, oh, if you're worried about you're gonna survive. Don't worry about that. God has made such a good job, lay his own life for each one of us. We are gonna survive, but the building might not. So that's why he's saying. So it's not just about, oh, okay, as long as I'm okay, you know, because a lot of the work that is not done in God, and if we don't follow God, it will collapse, you know. In this version of the Bible doesn't talk, but it's going to be fireproof, you know. If the building is fireproof, you know, it's going to stand, it's going to survive. And but don't worry, you are also going to survive, whether you build with straw. But is that a good thing? Is that what we want, you know? So that's how we can relate to it. Each one of the little piggies survived, but the building didn't, apart from one, you know. They barely made it, and that's a happy end. Let's go to the next one. There's yet another analogy or illustration from chapter 3, and it's a temple. And now he's saying each one of us is a temple. Do you know, some of you know that I'm a counselor, I'm a therapist, and that's what I do. I work from home. I work the hours that I can with little kids, and I have a lot of Christian counselees, Christian people, because I'm registered in kind of the Association of Christian Counselors, so quite naturally, I get quite a lot of referrals from there. And I hear a lot about the church this, the church that, and I understand, and I put myself in their shoes. But I hear very little, I am the church. I am. And we forget about that. We think the church is everyone else, the people that come on Sunday, the building, the institution. I don't know what we think about church. But God is making it super clear here and super personal. It says, oh, by the way, you are the temple. You are, if you vandalize it, if you mistreat it, I mean, mate, it's your fault. I mean, it's your problem, isn't it? And then we blame the shame. Sorry, the other way around. We shift the blame. Oh, it's the church. And I have lots to say. There's a personal thing, but my background and Ruth know the story very well. I had a good rant and a good cry with her on the phone about a lot of the things that I experienced growing up in a very, very abusive church. And when I was coerced to do things, and I was, I didn't have a Saturday or a Sunday where we had to be at church all day long and all night sometimes. And a lot of things. There were things that helped me to be the person that I am, and there are things that hurt me and I had to leave behind. It could be easy for me to say, oh, the church is this, the church is that. And I will be right, and I will be, I will own that hurt and see myself as a victim. But then I understand that I'm part of the church. I'm part of the church that for some reason Jesus seems to adore and love. Do I understand that? I don't know, because when we see, there's so many faults, but I am. Guys, I'm not, don't look at me and think, is she out of her mind or her head? But I am the church. I am part, and I am a temple as well, an individual temple. And probably you read on the slides on my back, you realize, don't you? Again, the message. That you are the temple of God and God himself is present in you. No one will get by vandalizing God's temple. You can be sure of that. God's temple is sacred. And you remember, their temple. So it's not the church, the institution, is me, and what I'm doing as part of that. So I'm dwelling a lot on this because it's a personal connection here. And let's go to chapter 4 and leave you alone. Okay, I really wanted to share another thing that for many years I was traumatized by, and is judgment. The judgment of God, the day of the Lord. What does he do for you when you hear that? For me, especially as a child or young person, made me full of fear, because the day of the judgment, and you are actually in front of the judge. How would you like that? Many years I was terrified of that. So who do we follow? What does it have to do with judgment? Try to bear with me. Who do we follow? It's very important that you don't lose track of that. Because the faithful one is going to be faithful always, even when you are being judged. And you think that being judged is great. Now all my sins, all my wrongdoings are going to be exposed. But here's what I read in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. This is verse 5, right? So don't get ahead of the master and jump to conclusions with your judgments before all the evidence is in. When he comes, he will bring out in the open and place in evidence all kinds of things we never even dreamed of, inner motives and purposes and prayers. Wow. Only then will any of us get to hear the well done of God. So all my life, I've been thinking that the day of judgment is the day to really be very scared of, because, gosh, I wonder if you're going to pass the test. And if you do, it's going to be the most embarrassing time of your life, and when you're judged and condemned. And it turns out that every little prayer, I like the message, how he put it up for us. Every little prayer, even whispered when you said on your way to work, Lord bless my friend, he's struggling, isn't he? Can you bless them? You don't think of that. It's off your head. But God is, thank you for that. Thank you for that. When not only when we do things, when we connect, when we say, Lord, I'm angry and I don't understand you and I don't understand what you're doing, but I just want to communicate that to you. I'm going to say, all right, you're doing the right thing. Thank you for coming to me and not ranting elsewhere, which is okay as well, to rant. But this is better. You chose the right thing. Well done, well done. And if you forget anything about this sermon, the day of the judgment is just to expose every little thing, everything that you've forgotten. He hasn't, he hasn't. Who do we follow? Let's read that little verse in verse 2. The most important quality of one entrusted with such secrets is that they are faithful and trustworthy. That's a Passion Translation, which I recommend a lot because I've been flicking through. I don't know a copy, but it's beautiful from what I could see. Faithful, follow him faithfully. Do you think he will forget? He will overlook that? He won't. He won't. And it will become very clear one day. Who did you follow in your life? Okay, that's it for me.